Well, welcome back to the Beyond Resistance Pod, where we share hard-won insights to build blue power and red communities and start winning. I'm Sarah Schultz.
And I'm Jennifer Austin. And we have a guest today on the pod, Omkari L. Williams. For those of you who have not heard of her before, she is a speaker, an activist coach. She leads workshops and trainings. She's the host of Stepping Into Truth podcast, where she interviews activists from all walks of life. And she's also, this is how I discovered her, the author of the book Microactivism, You Can Make a Difference in the World Without a Bullhorn, which is sad because we love bullhorns. She can be found at omkariwilliams.com. And as you can see, I have lots of little flags up here for all the things I marked off that I'm like, oh, I like that. Oh, I like that.
Omkari, welcome to the pod. Thank you so much for joining us. We cannot wait to have this conversation with you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk with both of you, and thank you for having those tabs in my book. That always makes me super excited. It's like, oh, someone actually really looked through it with care, and that's the kindest thing you can do to an author.
My book is literally coming apart.
Oh no, I'm going to have to send you a new one.
No, I'm good. It's fine. I love my books, and I will read them over and over, and sometimes I do little repairs to them because I love my books.
I can confirm that is true about Jennifer. Awesome. Well, Omkari, we usually kind of start with a warm-up question, and that warm-up question is, what has you fired up today? That can be something that fuels your activism or something that just fuels your inspiration. And we could start with me or you or Jennifer to kind of get us kicked off.
Sure, I'll go first. I mean, it's more like what doesn't have me fired up these days. There are so many things, but okay, I will pick one. I just got back a couple of days ago from a work trip to Greenville, South Carolina, where I spoke to a faith group about microactivism. And they had about 50, it was a crowd of about 250, and about 50 or 60 of those people were high school students.
Oh,
and
that's
was
awesome.
So great. I mean, it was amazing. The young woman I was sitting at a table with, her name is Azalea, and she was so bright and so engaged and so committed to leaving the world better than she found it she's 16 years old. So that really has me fired up. I'm like, yeah, the kids are out there, they are caring, they are doing the work. So there's no excuse for the rest of us.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've said recently that I have teenagers in high school, and I listen to them and talk to them and their friends. And if I could just hand the reins of power over to them today, I think we would all be better off. I don't know. The kids are okay. They're going to be okay.
One of my favorite moments at our last No Kings protest was this group of about 5 teenage girls in the front row, right up front. We had a march, and then we had speakers at a rally, and these girls were first in the marching line, and they got there and they got the front row seats, and we did a Hamilton sing along, and they just sang along, and they had the signs, and we pulled them up on stage, and I found out later that they had come to our previous, one of the girls had come to a previous one, and one of the organizers had talked to her and said, hey, bring friends. The next time she brought friends, and she's from a town north of us, or they are all students in a town north of us that is super red. So we were just super excited to have those young people with us.
Yeah, it's the best. It really, it reminds us all of why we're doing this. It's not just for us, it's really for those who are coming after us. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I don't have to share any more fired up than that. I mean, honestly, I think that's it for me as well. And Yeah, I think that anytime what you're sharing, Omkari, with, spending some time with students, reminds me of a couple of weeks on a choir trip I did with my kids a couple of months ago, and just got to see them just be kind to each other and thoughtful and all the things that, I don't see out in like the social media spaces of just adults kind of behaving. And that's enough to fire me up today too. Jennifer,
Or
what do you
adults
what do you got?
misbehaving.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, so
Jennifer, what do you
mine
got?
is a bit of a rant, and I'm going to try to make it as short as possible. Sarah has already heard some of my rant, so I apologize in advance. Okay, so my rant, and I've talked about this on the podcast before, is the Democratic Party not learning to move with the times and move with the new candidates, specifically with Graham Plattner. And I am going to say ahead of time, I don't know what's going on with this guy. Like, I don't know him personally. He could come out and he could just be terrible. Like what I'm seeing now is the things that they're saying that he has done. He's coming out with explanations. He's apologizing. He's doing the right things. Hopefully that will continue and there won't be any more major things that come out about him. But so he's kind of a bad example, but it's just this whole thing, like with Zoran Mandani, like, oh, we can't endorse him yet, like blah, blah, blah. Like, you've got new, fresh people that are talking about the things that Americans care about, and they're generating excitement, and you can't get behind them. I am so fired up about that just, yeah. Usually
I
I try
am
to be
right there
positive
with
fired up,
you.
but that's my anger fire up.
I'm right there with you. It's just like we cannot keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. That is the literal definition of insanity.
Yeah.
My husband's favorite saying, actually.
Yeah, and because it's true, and so it's very frustrating to see the entrenched powers being more interested in maintaining their entrenched power than in actually serving the needs of their constituencies. I mean, we act like they are our bosses. They're our employees.
That's right.
I mean, I think we really need to get our heads around that we've been looking at all of this backwards. These people work for us, and we need to act like it and start firing them when they're not working for us.
And I think that's what's really frustrating me about the establishment sticking their noses in races. Like here in Michigan, we have a hot primary, and the candidates are all being pretty decent to each other. I mean, they talk about differences and things that they don't like about each other, but they're not getting nasty. And the American period and the Michiganders are able to learn about these people and decide what they want. And we've got Chuck Schumer and Kirsten Gillibrand trying to butt their nose into it. It's like, no, just stay out. We'll figure it out. This is our state.
Yeah.
As a native of Manhattan, I am so beyond disgusted with Schumer and Gillibrand that I can't even, there literally are no words. They are so willfully, because they're not stupid people, willfully misreading the room. And it's just, so it's just about power. Okay, well, you've made it abundantly clear. And now it's our job as the constituencies to say, no, we don't like where you're taking us, so we're going to change direction.
Yes.
And I'm super excited to see what happens in the New York City mayoral race.
Me too.
I that it's even, I mean, the way it's unfolding is deeply disturbing. Just do not be hateful. It doesn't seem like it should be that hard. You want to be the leader of a city, start by not being hateful. And that's where Mamdani is just, he's such a joy-filled candidate. And I think that across the board, across the whole realm of activism, we have to be willing to be joyful. It doesn't do anybody any good if we're just always miserable and slogging through and It's like, no, we're doing all of this because we want to be able to be joyful.
Hmm.
So let's do it joyfully as much
Mhm.
Yeah.
as possible.
Oh, we
Yeah.
preach that.
Yeah, for sure. And we are doing this because we have a vision of a future that allows us all to maintain that level of joy. And it's an
Exactly.
active resistance to be joyful in the face of everything that's going on and to find
Exactly.
joy in all of those places.
Mhm.
So totally agree. And going like connecting the two things, right? So we started talking about young people and, being fired up and inspired by them. And how many times have we been in spaces in the Democratic Party or the progressive arm of everything where we talk about how do we engage the young people? Why are we a room full of, folks who are middle-aged and older? And we always ask those questions. But then you have an election result in the primary in New York City where historic numbers of young people literally came out to vote for Mandani, and still we don't
And
like that's
still,
that's still the example that we're looking for. This is what we need to engage young people. They've told us clearly. So stop asking that question and start
Mhm.
acting, like we heard the answer because we did.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
agreed 100%.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on to our first real question. Omkari, so for those who have not read Microactivism, and please, people, I am telling you, read it, whether you are a big organizer or a person that wants to get involved. Please read it. But what would you say? Could you just like give us a brief explanation of what microactivism is?
Sure. I mean, basically, I think of it in contrast to what most people probably think about when they hear the word activism, and they think about, these towering figures like Dr. King or Nelson
Mm,
Mandela or Greta Thunberg. They think about people who are on a stage and have this huge platform. And all of those people certainly are activists, there's no question. But I like to think of it this way. I use this analogy often when I'm talking. So Dr. King is at the Lincoln Memorial in August of 1963, and this is the March on Washington. And there he is with his entourage, but below him on the mall are 250,000 people whose names and faces we will never know.
mhm.
And without those 250,000 people, Dr. King would have been a tourist at the Lincoln Memorial.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it was those 250,000 people who made the event something that we still think about all these years later. And that's the power of microactivism. Each of those people was doing a tiny little piece, but the pieces all came together to create this incredible experience for the people there, and also for us down through history, understanding their impact and how that shifted the conversation. So microactivism is really about finding your place in the work of activism and knowing that it can be as small as being one of 250,000 people standing in a crowd, or as big as being the person standing on the stage and everything in between, but that the small thing is as important as the big thing, because without the small things, the big things don't really happen, they don't sustain.
Yeah.
And so rather than having a hierarchy, I think we need to broaden our view and recognize everyone has a contribution to make.
Mm, what
Yeah.
a great story. That's a
That's
great
one thing.
image.
Yeah, we talk about that like in the work that we do. Like Sarah and I are leaders, and we're always saying, well, we did this and we did that, but we also try to say, and we were two people of like 200 or 300 or whatever. It was like it wasn't just us. We might have been
Mhm.
leaders, but so many other people contributed to this thing we did.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that image. Well, in a related way, so one of the what we call movement mindsets that we like to talk about that we kind of hold is go big or go home. What we mean by that is that you kind of don't sell yourself short. That there is an opportunity for abundance and not scarcity when we're doing this work. And just because no one's ever done a thing doesn't mean a thing can't be done. Um, so when we're kind of talking about your book, and then also this mindset that we hold so closely, the first sort of thought might be like those two things can't exist in the same space, microactivism and the idea of going big. Um, but I think that there are ways, right, that those can be very like have synergy with each other. And I wonder if you could talk about that in terms of microactivism, but also like abundance and, not selling yourself short.
Yeah, I actually really like that framing of it because I think that sometimes people think because you're taking small actions that that doesn't matter, but it
Mm,
does, and you can have a huge goal. Say you want to end hunger in your community. That's a big goal. It doesn't mean that feeding one person doesn't matter.
oh,
Both things can
yeah,
exist in the same space. And
yeah.
I think we really need to reframe for ourselves our notions of success. And when I sort of push back against the go big or go home mentality, excuse me, it's mostly because people often look at it as an either or. Either you go big or you don't do anything.
Hmm.
And they don't really think about the
Mm,
number of
yeah.
actions that go into going big. You live in a football state, and go big or go home is a great idea if you're trying to make it to the bowl games in December.
Hmm.
Mhm.
But even to get there, there are all the drills, there are all the small things, they're all, paying attention to how the athletes are eating, paying attention to how they're sleeping. All of those small pieces are part of the go big. And I think the same is true in activism. The small pieces are part of go big. And for the people who are not naturally comfortable with big gestures, there's plenty of room for you in this movement. We definitely need you in this movement.
Mhm.
We cannot do this work without people who are willing to do the quote unquote small things, the quote
Mhm.
unquote micro things. Those things really matter. Those things are profound, especially in this country that says if you're not a gajillionaire, you don't matter. If you're
Yeah.
not changing the world every day, you
Mm.
don't matter. I I disagree with that wholeheartedly. It's like, no, 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 no. Everyone has a contribution to make, and we should value that and honor that and respect that not only for other people, but for ourselves as well.
That's beautiful. It makes me think about the some of the big protests that we've been doing in our community, and they're very big, right? They're kind of historically big lately. There's this one guy who has a sound system, and it's like a pretty fancy sound system. His name is Milton. He's the nicest guy ever. And for all of our events, the thing that Milton does is bring the sound system. And they would not be what they are at all if we
Yeah.
didn't have Milton and his speakers and his microphones. And that's not a go big role, but it's a absolutely critical piece of a go big event and a go big movement that we're
Hmm.
trying to do, that we have been doing. Um, so I love that idea of like, what are there are so critical, there's so many so critical roles in this work that are kind of enablers to other things that make it
Yes.
all happen.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, there are Miltons across so many areas of all of these protests, so many areas of all of our day to day activism. The
Mhm.
person who does the thing or provides the thing that is the sort of catalyst for so many other things.
Mhm.
And I think we need to respect that, and we
Hmm.
need to really just notice it, because also there's seasons in our lives of activism. If you have young kids, you're in a very different position than if
Yeah.
your kids are in college or out of the,
Definitely.
otherwise out of the house. If you are retired, you're in a different position than
Mhm.
when you are first starting your career. And respecting that allows people to be able to keep making a contribution over the course of their lives, rather than saying, oh, well, you can't do X, Y, or Z, so you're no longer useful to us. I just don't think we should be discarding people or ideas, or, just, we need to be bringing people together and having conversations and building community, not creating silos.
Yeah, that's definitely something that we feel is extremely important, is this idea of the building. This person does this action, and then that encourages a few more people to do this next action, and then that encourages more people, and it builds and builds. Like, it builds the blue power, it builds the movement, it builds, whatever your specific thing that you're trying to talk about, it just kind of builds that. And like, that's what that kind of gets me into, like, with the microactivism. Not everybody's going to start a podcast. Not everybody's going to, be a leader of a group. What are some things that people can incorporate into their daily lives that look like microactivism that are going to make a difference?
Sure. I mean, it depends on who you are. There's a ton of things. I mean, maybe you're the person who is most comfortable printing out the flyers and then taking them around town and putting them on lampposts. Maybe that's the place that feels accessible to you. Maybe you're someone who regularly is happy to go and work at your local food pantry. Maybe you're the person who's going to get your neighbors together and start a little free store on your corner so people can come and pick up things that they need and not have to pay for them. I mean, it's as varied as there are people on the planet. And there are people whose genius is spreadsheets. I look at a spreadsheet and I start to sweat. I mean, it's not pretty.
We're spreadsheet people.
There are, God, I love that, because it means I don't have to torture myself doing something I have absolutely no native capacity for. It's like, yes, someone else is going to do the spreadsheet. Hallelujah. Right? Those things matter, and those things are sustainable. Spreadsheets are not sustainable for me, but they're sustainable for other humans.
Yeah.
So this is good.
Yeah.
And I think when we connect the type of work we want to do as an activist to who we are, then it becomes as natural as brushing your teeth twice a day. You don't have to think about it. You just do it. It's like, this is part of what I do.
Yeah.
A friend of mine in Chicago does this thing where she has her mom's friends knit and crochet hats. And then in the winter, she drives around just on her regular day-to-day life, but in her car are Ziploc bags with hats, hand warmers, a protein bar, and $5. And when she sees an unhoused person, she pulls over and hands them a bag.
Oh, wow.
I mean, you can do something like that,
Amazing.
and it matters. It matters.
That makes a difference in somebody's life. Like, you
totally
think, oh,
does.
it's just a hat and gloves and a protein bar. Like, people, but like, if you're in a position of need, just somebody showing that they even care and think about you is huge. We have somebody that does something similar, but they put them in Ziploc bags and they're at a community garden and they're all like pinned up so people can just come by and get them.
Take them.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm going to have to think about how to incorporate that. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, and that's the other thing. It's like, so I told you that story about my friend, and then you tell me your story, and we get to iterate and improve and make things even better and more available. And that's so important, because that's the community piece, and the community piece is really, really critical.
Yeah.
We should not be doing this work alone. We should not.
Yeah. I like what you're saying about like folks finding what they love to do just in their lives and turning that into their microactivism. And it makes me think of, this is another sewing example, but during COVID, we started a group of folks who made face masks, when right, Jennifer was part of that, when you couldn't get the PPEs, and we had people just coming from nowhere who we didn't really know, but they knew how to sew, and like it was like, this is my thing, this is the thing that I can do. And in that project, we had people who didn't know how to sew, but they could cut material. And we had people who had loads of spare material in their house that they donated. We had people who drove around picking up spare material and taking it to the cutters, and then grabbing the cut material, taking it to the sewers. And we made something like 10,000 face masks and then delivered it
Wow.
to, yeah,
Mhm.
delivered them out to the, essential workers and all of those folks in our community who, at that time you just couldn't get those things.
Could not get them.
Yeah. And I will also say this microactivism like also leads to more activism, right? So like those
Yes.
people who did that face mask project are now involved in other ways.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so it's sort
Because
of
it
like
feels
can build.
good.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
It feels you're helping someone, and you're helping your community, and that feels good.
Yeah.
I think that something that's really important for us to be thinking about at this moment in time is how intentionally we have been isolated. I mean, I was
Mm.
thinking about how when you would go into Barnes and Noble a few years back, the self-help section was huge. It
Mm.
was like just shelves
Mm.
and shelves of books on self-help. And those were all, I mean, and no, I read plenty of them, so I'm not criticizing,
Mhm.
but it was self-help. It wasn't community help. It
Yeah.
wasn't collective help. And I think that there is a benefit in creating a society where people are siloed, and that what we're experiencing now as people are starting to push back is returning to a more collective understanding of how we all thrive rather than
Yeah.
just some of us thriving. And I think it's really important to return to that way of being in the world. I mean, as a dedicated introvert, I still want a solid community around
Hmm.
me.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too. I'm totally an introvert. And I like to speak to that. Like, I have never thought about it that way, that they are self-help books, not community help books.
Hmm.
And I was listening to a podcast yesterday, this weekend, I did a whole lot of driving for my son's swim meet. And they were talking about the social contract and how people have kind of let go of it. And I'm like, okay, I just had another idea for a podcast because I have so much free time on my hand. I want to talk about that with people. I want to talk about
Yeah.
why we've let that go and how we can rebuild it.
Yeah, I honestly don't think it was accidental. I really do think it's intentional
Mm-hmm.
because people are much easier to control if they are individuals
Hmm.
than
Agreed.
if they are groups.
Yeah.
It's why they're trying to tear and have successfully torn down a lot of unions and things like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
You negotiate with one person, that's one thing. You negotiate with 10,000 people, that's something else
Yeah.
entirely. So I think that we need to reconnect to the power that is ours as collectives.
Hmm.
And it may be a small collective, but still 5 people is more powerful than one person.
Mm-hmm.
And also in collectives, in community, we are able to support and nourish each other in ways that are not possible outside of those structures. In community, when someone's completely drained of energy, someone else can pick up the slack.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
That's
And
right.
that's really important because, this is hard work. This
Yeah.
is,
It
and
is.
it's long-term work. So we need people to keep us just buoyed up and feeling like, yeah, I can see that this is valuable. I can see that this is meaningful, even if it's frustrating from the perspective of a day-to-day event.
Yeah.
This concept of community care has cropped up recently, and it kind of the answer to self-care. So both, the idea being that both are really critical, and then just in the past year or so, the idea of mutual aid, right,
Yeah.
has come into the forefront more than it had been before. And I agree, it's intentional. I think that people who are afraid are easier to manipulate, and people who are alone are easier to make afraid.
Yes.
And then that's where we get into the space. So if we're intentional about pulling the levers of community care and of mutual aid, in our own small communities, but also, in virtual communities and other spaces, then that can make a real difference. And those are efforts of activism as well.
Yeah.
So the next question is reflecting on a guest that we had a couple of months ago. Their name is Seamal, and they talked about legacy. And they talked about living in their values and by their values. In your book, you also mention legacy, and you compare it to ripples in a pond, which is a beautiful image. Lately, I've been thinking about legacy. It's been a long time in this work, right? And what does legacy mean for me and the work that we've been doing? And realizing, like, of course, just as everyone, we might not see the full effect of the work that we've been doing in our activism and in our communities. Wonder if you could talk a bit about what keeps you going, even though that, much of what we do, we may never see the full results of.
Yeah. I think we need a reframing of how we look at our activist work. The clearest parallel is the civil rights movement. And when you think about the civil rights movement, it went over decades and decades, and many people in the movement knew they were never ever going to see the end of it. I mean, we still haven't seen the full culmination of it, and they're trying to roll back so many pieces of it. But those people did not say, well, I'm not going to see the end of this, so I'm not going to do anything. They didn't see their job as being to complete the work. They saw their job as being to advance the work. They saw that as part of their legacy, was advancing the work and moving things forward and creating more space for the people coming up behind them. And I think when we think about legacy as our day-to-day actions and how they impact the people around us, not just what are we leaving when we're not here anymore. That it shifts legacy from something that sort of feels kind of airy-fairy and, like off in the distance, and we don't want to think about dying, so we're just not going to think about that. And it becomes something else. It becomes about, what are the decisions I'm making today and how are those going to impact people? As small as smiling at someone who's unhoused. So as Jennifer said, just acknowledging their existence. That's part of our legacy, as is choosing to pretend that you did not see them sitting there on the street. That's also part of our legacy. So we get to be more intentional. We get to be more present to the impact that we're having each day, I think, when we reframe legacy as a here and now thing, not just a later thing.
Yeah. Oh, I love that idea. I think you said something like your legacy can be forwarding or advancing the work, not completing the work. And that just feels so liberating, right? So that, like, if I don't have to get to a point of like, and ta-da, everything's great, but all I'm doing is advancing it as far as I can. That's really powerful. And I just feel very like inspired by that.
I'm glad, because
oh no, go ahead.
Okay, I just want to say, we don't have control over the outcome, and so if our only metric for success is achieving the outcome we want, we're going to be really frustrated along the road. And I don't want us to be frustrated along the road. I want to, frustration will come up, of course, but I don't want that to be the norm. I want us to be able to say, okay, I made a little bit of a difference today. I made a little bit of an impact today. I made one person's life a little bit brighter today, and I'm going to go do the same tomorrow.
That's lovely.
Yeah, that's what I was going to kind of double down on there, was just this idea of getting too lost in the goal. What's our goal? And we didn't achieve it, and we achieved nothing. No, you took steps along the way. You've advanced it, and just keeping that in mind helps to keep the positivity going. And I never really thought too much about it before, until Sarah and I started talking about the book we want to write and the podcast we're doing and all this stuff that we've been doing and wanting to help other people. And then also we went to see Softs on Broadway in New York about the suffrage movement. And that was one of the songs is, you know, we may never see what we want to happen in our lifetime, but you just keep marching. And that's just something that's really helped me keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Omkari, we always try to end on a bit of a lighter question and conversation. So the question that I'm bringing to the space to end on, so we're talking about micro things or small things. And I'm wondering if we could all share what tiny or micro luxury that you allow yourself that helps you feel reinvigorated or maybe makes you feel 10% better. What small or micro luxury do you allow yourself?
Okay, so I am completely addicted to C's cashew brittle candy. Other
Awesome.
people love chocolate. I'm okay with chocolate, but this is cashews in a brittle, and then it's dipped in white chocolate and coconut, and it
Ooh, that
is
sounds
like my
amazing.
favorite thing.
I'm
And
not a big
this,
brittle fan, but that sounds
Yeah, that
amazing.
sounds
I'm
good.
telling you, it's sadly delicious, you know. And it is my little treat. You know, it's like at
Yeah.
the end of a really hard stretch, I will just order myself a box. And when it comes, I will try and be disciplined about not eating it in one sitting, because nobody needs to eat a pound of candy in one sitting.
Yeah.
But it is one of my little treats. You know, it's like, okay, you've done some good work in the world. This is, you get to do a little treat. And it sounds really kind of, you know, it sounds very self-indulgent, and it is. But then my other non-caloric, non-sugar treat is every now and then I will just have what I call a fancy pajama day. And
Oh,
I put on a pair of pajamas that I don't sleep in, that I just wear around the house all day long, but they're very fancy pajamas and they look really nice. And then I feel very luxurious as I lay on the sofa and
that's
either read a
amazing.
book or watch Netflix or whatever, you know, but you're not going to clean your house in your fancy pajamas, right?
Right.
You're not going
Right.
to do that.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yes, fancy pajama day and C's cashew brittle. They should give me like a little discount for promoting
Yeah,
this stuff
They totally should.
at least a free pound of candy.
at the very least.
I love the idea of putting on the fancy pajamas so that you can't possibly like do the dishes in fancy
No.
pajamas.
Oh, no.
Like you have,
I'm pretty
yeah.
sure that there's a rule about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
No
And
housework.
right. And the cat, I mean, the fact that this candy sounds decadent for lots of reasons, but especially because it's cashews. It's not peanut brittle, it's
No.
cashew brittle. Like
Cashew
there's,
brittle
yeah.
with white chocolate
Ooh,
and coconut. I mean, it's
wow.
lovely.
Sounds
So,
wonderful.
yeah, yeah.
So the tiny the micro luxury that I will share is that I've been engaged in exploring watercolor painting over the last almost
Ooh.
2 years. Not an artist at all, but I took a class randomly and I've just turned it into a mindfulness practice. And I do it every single morning. But the luxury is when I decide I need new paintbrushes. It makes me feel like I'm a little bit of an artist when I'm like I've outused this paintbrush. I need to get a new paintbrush, and it's $7 or something like that. But it feels very fancy to have to get a new paintbrush.
I love
Tiny
that.
luxury, yeah, yeah.
And her
Jennifer,
paintings
what?
are lovely, regardless of what she likes to say. She's a mediocre watercolor painter, but she's painting little like tiny ones and putting them in necklaces. I have two of them, and
Mhm.
I am very proud to wear them out in public so people can see my necklace.
It makes me feel so good when you wear them, Jennifer. Thank
No, we
you.
love them.
Oh.
Like we had a bachelorette party for a friend, and she gave them away as like party favors, and one of her
Oh,
friends couldn't make it, and she was so bummed. I'm like, she'll get you a necklace. It's not a problem. So we had to, make sure she got one. And to the fancy pajamas, Sarah, I think we can incorporate that on our next girls retreat.
I think that sounds
I think
great.
we should have a fancy pajama day
Yeah, I
for
think
sure.
that sounds wonderful.
But my indulgence is like lavender soap or lilac soap or lavender or lilac bath bombs. Like I love to take a bath or even just like my everyday shower. I want that bar of soap, and they're usually handmade and they're usually from, somebody, some artsy craftsy, thing that I go to every time we go someplace. I'm like, ooh, they've got some soap. So I got a little stash in the cupboard, and they're way more expensive than your typical bar of Dove, but it makes me happy to have that little bit of scent in the morning.
And the thing is, where did we get the idea that these little tiny luxuries were sort of in any way outrageous, right? They're small things. They make life more joyful. We're not hurting anybody, It's just, right. It just feels really important that we incorporate those little bits of joy into what otherwise could be honestly a very grim world.
Yeah,
absolutely. And talk about them in a way that's not like just like, these are things that we do and we're happy to have those.
Yes, and intentional, and we choose to do these things, and we choose to do them because they bring us joy, not because of any other reason, and joy is enough.
That's right. Yeah. I love that. I love that. Jennifer, you want to close us out?
What else? Oh, what else do I need to talk about?
No. Well, that's a wrap for our podcast today. So happy to be joined by our new friend, Omkari. And definitely check out her book, Microactivism. And Jennifer, do you want to share the website again?
So Omkari's is OmkariWilliams.com. Omkari, sorry, I was trying to make sure I said it right. So yeah, check them out. They've got a lot of different information there that you can check out, and I for sure want you to read the book. And I will also say, check out our website, beyondresistancepod.com. We've got our blueprint, 5 steps for building blue power, that you can download. We're always adding different things to the site. You can find our podcast, you can find our socials, everything you need to get started building blue power.
Absolutely. Thank you, Omkari, for joining us today.
Thank you so much. This was really fun. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So join us next time on the Beyond Resistance Pod, where we share hard-won insights to build blue power in red communities and start winning. Thank you, and see you next time.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.